everybody. Welcome to Gen Con. Welcome to our Pathfinder Adventure Path panel. We'll be answering all your questions about Shoonies for the next hour and pretty much talking about nothing else. Just kidding. My name is Patrick Rini. I'm a Pathfinder developer on the Adventure Path line, and today we'll be talking about Agents of Edgewatch. We'll be talking about some of the other exciting adventure paths coming up. I'll let my fellow co-hosts speak to that. Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm Ron Lundeen. I am also a developer on the Pathfinder Adventure Path line. I'd have to say my favorite Shoonie art is the one fishing, where he's got a fish and his tongue's up like, I got it. Anyway.
And I'm James Jacobs. I'm the creative director for Pathfinder. I am going to plead the fifth on talking about Shoonies.
It's too close to your heart, I'm sure.
Yeah, too close to something.
That's right. So we'll be pulling up a slideshow here so you can kind of check out some of the cool art for our adventure paths coming up, and we're really stoked to share that with you. And at the end, we'll be answering some questions. So be sure to get your questions in on the Twitch chat, and yeah, we'll scan through that near the end of this presentation and answer those to the best of our ability. So yeah, without further ado, we'll check out the first slide on the slideshow, and that should show us, let's see, the title card of some sort, and then the next one, which will be about Agents of Edgewatch. So I'm really looking forward to this adventure path. We're wrapping up the final volumes of it right now, this very week. So that should tell you where we are at the process. And the first one has just come out. That would be Pathfinder number 157, Devil at the Dreaming Palace by James L. Sutter. Really looking forward to seeing how folks like this adventure path. It basically sees you as newly enlisted city guards in Absalom, our city at the center of the world, the metropolis of all metropolises in Pathfinder. And you're part of the newly formed Edgewatch, which has been put together basically in order to protect and serve people while the once per century Radiant Festival is on its way. So the Radiant Festival celebrates the failed siege of Karnas the Angel Binder over 3,000 years ago, one of the many failed sieges on Absalom. And this once per century festival is a huge World's Fair level kind of a thing that draws visitors from all around the world. And so as a city guard, your job is to protect the tourists and the citizens of Absalom. In the first adventure, Devil at the Dreaming Palace, you solve a and just so everyone is aware, there will be some I'd say medium level spoilers for these adventure paths, so if you're really if you're going to be playing in one of these and don't want to know, maybe do some of this every now and then. But yeah, the first one, Devil at the Dreaming Palace, sees you kind of take on your first rookie assignments, get a lay of the land, help some people solve some disputes at the Radiant Festival, and then you get involved in basically a murder mystery. You find out that someone is not doing good stuff, is kidnapping tourists and taking them to his murder hotel. So very heavily inspired by a book called Devil at the White City by Eric Larson. So if you're a fan of H.H. Holmes kind of mysteries and that kind of level of intrigue, then this will be right up your alley, I think. The following volume, number 158, is called 60 Feet Under. That's written by Michael Sayer. And that is, you start to unravel a plot that began with the murder mystery. You hear about this nefarious group of cultists called the Twilight Four. And they worship Norgabor, our god of thievery and murder and all sorts of mayhem. And you ultimately delve into the catacombs to take care of this Skinsaw cult. So if we could go ahead and see the next slide, then we can see some awesome art from that. And so what's cool about the catacombs and Absalom is they're this massive, the city's 5,000 years old almost, and there's just this massive graveyard, basically this subterranean complex. And so some Skinsaw cultists who are worshippers of the Father Skinsaw aspect of Norgobur, they've taken up residence there. They're kidnapping fair visitors, and they're sacrificing them to their foul deity. And so your job quickly becomes to stop that and make sure that's not happening. And this is where really the AP begins to take you all over Absalom. You start in the Precipice Quarter, which is this ruined kind of earthquake shattered corner where they've just revitalized it for the fair, but it's still a bit ragged. And then this second adventure takes you to the Ascendant Court, which is the where the Starstone Cathedral and a bunch of temples to the various deities, including the ascended deities who achieved godhood through the Starstone. This is where they're all at. So you get a taste of that part of Absalom. Following that, in 159, which is called All or Nothing, you are taken to the Docks District, and that's where you get involved in some gang warfare going on. Some docks-based gangs are wreaking havoc on the street, and you need to basically facilitate a meeting between the two gang leaders, or put a stop to their feud at least, so that no more innocent people get hurt. And that quickly takes you further into this whole plot with the Twilight Four, and you're trying to figure out this whole time, what exactly is going to happen with these cultists. You're not sure what their ultimate plan is, but you learn a bit more about them. And I'm really excited for this volume in particular, All or Nothing, because there's a great Ocean's 11 style kind of casino heist chapter where you have to basically break into the casino undercover. You have to pretend you're high rollers and get in good with the casino owner in order to get into the vault and find the evidence that you need without alerting him to the fact that the fuzz is onto him. And then that one is written by Jason Keeley. So that's going to be really cool. I'm really excited for that one. Following that, what are we up to? That would be 159. So 160 is the fourth one, and that is written by none other than our developer Ron Lundeen here. Also very exciting. That one sees you go undercover into a conference for the Blackfingers aspect of Norgobur, which is the poisoner aspect. So he's kind of this quartet god. He represents four different aspects, which is kind of why there's the Twilight Four is these mastermind cultists trying to pull off this scheme. Each one represents a different facet of Norgobur's profile. So his Blackfingers aspect is the poisoning aspect, and you basically have to sneak into a conference full of alchemists and poisoners, and in order to see what's going on there, and ultimately arrest the priest of Blackfingers, the high priest of Blackfingers, who leads the temple. That volume is called Assault on Hunting Lodge 7, because you have to, ultimately there's this downpour outside, and there's this bureaucratic mix-up. Nobody knows who's gonna take charge for this priest of Blackfingers, and you have to hole up in an old hunting lodge, which is Absalom's old adventuring guilds, kind of these occult, strange places where things used to go down, but now they don't. And so you have to hole up in there, wait out the storm, wait out the bureaucratic nonsense, and keep your prisoners safe in the meanwhile. All of course, things don't go according to plan necessarily. People are trying to break in and free him, or break in and destroy him. So you're trying to stave off the waves of assassins and his accomplices. Following that, you make your way to a haunted kind of fairground at the end of that book, which is very cool. And you're basically implicated in the theft of this giant. The players are implicated in the theft of this giant excavator, which was a giant machine that was used to carve out the Precipice Quarter for the Radiant Festival. So you and the acting Primarch actually get kind of framed for this thing. So that leads into the fifth volume, which is called, sorry, just having a brain fart. The fifth volume, which is written by Cole Kronwitter and is called Belly of the Black Whale. And as you might guess from the title, that takes you into kind of Absalom's criminal underworld a little bit more. You're going rogue because you've been framed for this thing. You've had your badges taken away. You're no longer honorable, officers of the law. And you have to basically clear your names and clear the Primarch's name as well. So it has this awesome prison break kind of chapter where you go to the Black Whale, which is a waterborne collection of galleys, like 6 or 7 different ships that compose this this prison, the hardest prison to get out of in Owl of Absalom, right? That's where only political, really high rollers and political bigwigs go to get locked up. So you have to free the Primarch, and then you go about clearing your name by finding the Rumor Monger, who is that's the code name for the 3rd member of the Twilight Four that you discover, and he's the aspect of Norgobor that he worships is secret keeping and sharing secrets and kind of a false information and stuff like that. So yeah, at the end of that volume, you arrest the 3rd member of that, and then the 6th volume is called Ruins of the Radiant Siege. That's written by Amber Stewart, and that's the one we're wrapping up right now, and that one takes you to the ruins beneath Fort Tempest, which is where Starwatch is located, and you're part of Edgewatch to begin with, as the name of this AP suggests, Agents of Edgewatch, but you get involved with other precincts around Absalom, and you're ultimately promoted to the Starwatch, which is kind of the inter-agency, the inter-district agency, the kind of a higher authority there. So you have to go beneath the ruins beneath Fort Tempest, which is where one of Starwatch's headquarters, and you have to go down there, find an artifact called the Radiant Spark, in order to defeat the final member of the Twilight Four, who has ascended to a level of power heretofore unknown to cultists of Norgobor. So you really want to make sure she doesn't get her way for the sake of Absalom. And that's pretty much if we want to go to the next slide, we can see some more awesome art from this AP. It's been a hoot to work on. I'm really looking forward to seeing how folks like it. And yeah, I'm really excited. That takes us to our next point. I'd like to introduce Ron again. Ron will be talking about the AP he's been working on.
Yeah, that one is the Abomination Vaults. If we can get to the Abomination Vaults slide, I think it's the next one. The big change that we've made here in the Abomination Vaults is, unlike our past adventure paths, which are 6 volumes long, this one is 3 volumes long. This will take characters from 1st through 10th level of play. You end at about 11th level. This one is about the mega dungeon. This is a multi-level dungeon that exists fairly near Absalom, but right near a little town called Otari, which is featured in our beginner box, which is featured in our Pathfinder Adventures line with the Troubles in Otari adventure. This is a really great starting place for a lot of new campaigns. And we've got this 3-part AP that starts right there. The Adventure Path has 3 volumes. The first one is Ruins of Gauntlight, written by James Jacobs, which it's filled with everything that makes James' writing awesome. It's silliness plus horror, and sometimes in the very same encounter. That is great. In Ruins of Gauntlight, this eerie, landlocked lighthouse suddenly starts to give off a baleful glow, and the heroes are the ones who are tasked to find out about it. They do know that there was hundreds of years ago, there was an important fight here that actually led to the town of Otari being founded, but something's going on now, and the something reveals that there are in fact multiple dungeon levels underneath Gauntlight. And these multiple dungeon levels are the Abomination Vaults. The wicked person that created them is now back, and the monsters that have been that were stocked in this dungeon have now either come back into being, or they've been there all along and have their own ecosystems and their own interrelations with each other. So in the first adventure, the heroes go through the top part of the Abomination Vaults. The second adventure, Hands of the Devil, written by Vanessa Hoskins, is about the middle parts of the dungeon that have all been taken over by a contract devil who's got a deal to follow, and he won't be dissuaded from this deal. And whether the heroes help him to complete the deal or try to foil him from doing so is the thrust of that adventure. The third adventure, Eyes of Empty Death, written by Stephen Radney McFarlane, is the lowest levels and the biggest, most sort of natural cavern-filled sprawling levels of the Abomination Vaults, where they confront the evil person who's behind this, who's a follower of one of the most sort of creepy and cool outer gods that we have in our setting. And the effects of that have sort of suffused the entire Abomination Vaults. So one of the things that I think is really neat about this is it is easy to build a mega dungeon that is just corridor and room after corridor and room filled with monsters that you bash and take their treasure and get better. But what we've done is we've tried very hard to interweave several stories, side quests, interesting NPCs. You're going to find in places you least expect it, right? Not only will you be finding terrible monsters and creepy aberrations, but you'll be finding people and creatures that really need the hero's help, or not, if the heroes are inclined to give it. You may find a very sudden battle of the bands going on, some weird hunting challenges. There's a lot going on in the Abomination Vaults. One of the things we've also done is to make sure that there is so much stuff, so much adventure to be had, that not only does this adventure work particularly well if you're deciding to use slow advancement, requiring a little more XP for your characters to advance, they'll still get up to the right levels that they need. But we've got so many different sort of interwoven plots here that there's really no way that any group could do this all the same way, with all of the different interconnections and the different side quests and so on, which keeps it, we think, sort of fun and fresh. Not only exciting the first time you go through it, but if you then go run it for another group, then you've got all entirely different experiences and entirely different people. There is a big anchor to the town of Otari sort of throughout. There are several places where the story sort of nudges the heroes to go back to town in order to pick up something that they need, or deliver something they found, or talk to the people that they made friends with in the town of Otari. So there's a real to and from the mega dungeon, from the little small town feel to this whole thing. It's the thing that is most interesting, most difficult, I'd say, but most interesting to me from a developer point of view, is Extinction Curse, the adventure path that I developed before this one, has a very specific sort of through line that it goes through. This event's going to happen, and the heroes are going to go here, and then these events are going to happen. So it's a more consistent narrative, and a mega dungeon, by its very nature, lacks a consistent narrative. The heroes can go anywhere. They could bump into this person that solves this quest before they even know the quest is going to happen, and then once they get there, oh, we were just there. We've got this answer for you. I mean, that's the kind of thing that that makes it feel a little less scripted, a little more alive, where the heroes kind of make their own narrative as they go through. It's a little bit of a development challenge. Every time I'm at a story point, I'm like, all right, well, the heroes might not have hit all the story points before this. How do we communicate that? How do we address that? But it's great. It's great fun, and I'm really enjoying developing it. I am sort of, elbows deep into that work, and it is a ton of fun. I think, Patrick, you're still muted.
Oh, no.
Thanks, Ron. I sure was.
There you go.
Yep. Next up, thanks, Ron. Yeah, I appreciate that. And then next, James will be telling us about what he's been working on lately on the Adventure Path line.
Hey, before that, don't we have any pictures to show off for Abomination Vaults, Ron? Who is also muted?
Oh my
No, he's not.
goodness, yes. So we do have a couple things about Abomination Vaults. We don't have any of the sort of adventure art or covers yet that are final to show off. I just recently saw them and I am thrilled, but the timing didn't work to get them into our presentation. But oh boy, do we have a bunch of monsters. One of the ones that we've got, if we can get the next slide, there are Morlocks aplenty under the surface of the earth, including different kinds of Morlocks. Morlocks are really good with sort of tinkering with old or failing or fallen technology. Some are better at it than others. So our next slide is a Morlock engineer, which is a creature we've got. I had mentioned that one of the outer gods that sort of suffuses this, it's actually the outer god Nimbleoth, who is the patron of swamps and ghosts and will-o-wisps and that sort of creepy nastiness. Will-o-wisps themselves aren't undead, but ooh, they can be. So if we can get the next slide, a corpse light is a undead will-o-wisp that feeds upon other dead creatures in order to steal their essence and get them up and moving around. And so we've got some creepy art of a corpse light about to do its sinister work. So thank you, James, for the reminder. I wanted to show off a couple of those neat monsters that we've got.
Yeah, no worries. So we've also got coming up quite a bit later after Abomination Vaults, we've got the fancy new anniversary edition of Kingmaker. And this is something that we crowdfunded a while back. It's something I've been working on pretty much nonstop for the last several months. This is, you may have seen, we've done these before with like Rise of the Rune Lords and Curse of the Crimson Throne, taking an adventure path we previously published, updating it to the current rule set, and then kind of just throwing it all into one big book. Kingmaker is the biggest one of these we've done yet, whereas you get something like Curse of the Crimson Throne came in at about 500 pages. The Kingmaker Adventure Path is coming in at 640 pages, so there's a lot of brand new content. It's still very much in the development stage. We're just now starting to kick things over to editors to have them do their first passes over it. It's going to have, it's all going to be updated to second edition Pathfinder. We will have a book out that will help you run it in first edition Pathfinder. We'll have a book out that will help you run it in 5e. But the focus of it is hundreds and hundreds of pages of updated adventure path of one of our most popular adventure paths we've ever done. And it's sort of in the same case as Abomination Vaults, where we've still got some of the art coming in. And I figured I'd just throw a few pieces up here to show off and let people see what sort of, new stuff, old stuff you can expect with Kingmaker. So if we can get the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit about Kingmaker going forward. Kingmaker is an adventure path that we designed after everybody, all of our customers, fans, everyone was asking for a sandbox game. And the whole point of Kingmaker is that your adventurers are sent down into this wilderness region called the Stolen Lands, and you are expected to basically defeat the bandits that live there, fight the monsters, and build your own kingdom in this unclaimed territory. And the adventure path, it follows your character's exploration of the Stolen Lands, the building of their kingdom. You start clashing against local, other local kingdoms and nations and all of that. And the storyline, the through line of the entire thing is really kind of left up to how you, the players, want to explore this whole thing. There is, there's a few big bad end people lurking in the background doing their own thing against your kingdom, but that's not really the whole driving force of the storyline. When we first published Kingmaker, we really, really leaned into the sandbox element of it. And turns out a lot of people wanted more of a presence of the villains behind the scenes. So in this version, we punched that up a little bit. Of course, Kingmaker also got picked up by Owlcat Games and turned into a really pretty awesome computer game, which should be coming out in a few weeks, I believe, on consoles, Xbox and PlayStation. And so that version of Kingmaker brought an entire new element of stuff. They added a prologue where you get your initial assignment, your charter to go down and settle the Stolen Lands. There's some encounters halfway through, like with the Season of Bloom with the Cult of Lamashtu that comes in and messes with your kingdom. and there is a coda to the entire campaign where you fight one of the all of these just powerful fae. So if we move on to the next slide, we can start seeing some of the art that we have built up for this. We've also got some brand new content, including a dungeon underneath the town of, or not town, the ruins of Candlemere, which Ron Lundeen jumped on to write. So that was handy. We've got a lot of new other encounters. We got a lot of help from Legendary Games, and they did the initial pass of going through here, adding new encounters, converting a lot of the computer game stuff. It's a team of like 24 or a dozen, or a lot of authors. And they went through and kind of gathered everything together, got the kingdom building rules, the settlement building rules, the mass combat rules, all of those kind of in a one mega document. And then I've been going through and continuing to develop that. So this whole thing is taking longer than we anticipated. It's now looking like it's going to be coming out second half of the year in 2021, I believe. So late next year. We originally were hoping to get it out late this year, but it's not going to happen, unfortunately. So then we can get the next slide up. As you can see, that last one was our iconic druid Linny and her snow leopard Dugami going up against some lizard folk, which you may, if you've played through Kingmaker before, you may remember that encounter. This next one, one of the interesting things about this adventure path is it allows us to re-illustrate content that we never illustrated before. When we first did Kingmaker, it was, like I said, 10 years ago. It was the first adventure path we created that we had actual rules for Pathfinder in-house and in a complete shape that we could work with. The previous one, Council of Thieves, was the first Pathfinder Adventure Path. We had to build that concurrently with the rules themselves being finished off. So as a result, we had spent a lot of our resources and time and everything illustrating the core rulebook and the bestiary and all of that. So Kingmaker was kind of art light the first time through. So now we're getting to show new art and just show off a lot of the new content that we've got for the game. Let's get the next slide. I think we've got 3 in all. But yeah, stuff like showing Amiri, like we just showed, as the actual, in this case, queen of the Stolen Lands, with people bringing her treasure. We've got on our blog a couple more pieces of art as well, if you want to go check that out. It was a week or two ago, with like a weird mutant chimera with like a centipede head and a snake head and a vulture head. And yeah, so it's one of the biggest projects we've ever taken on. Like I said, the adventure path itself is 640 pages. There's another book coming along called the Companion Guide, which has another 128 pages of side quests and NPC companions that you can find and join up with, taken from the Owlcat video game. And then, of course, the first edition Pathfinder and the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons bestiaries that take all of the stat blocks and do the work for you, so you don't have to do all that conversion work if you want to run it in another system of your choice. So yeah, that's Kingmaker in a nutshell. I think that this last image here was one that I really is what, like I was saying, we didn't have enough money and time and stuff to get all of these illustrations. We barely had anything illustrating the first world, which is the realm of the Fae, which slight spoiler is part of this creepy influence that's coming into Menace Your Kingdom. So we're going to have more illustrations of what's going on in the first world, like giant mandragoras coming out of the jungle to attack your characters. So yeah. And I think that's the last image we have for Kingmaker. I'm going to kick it back to Patrick now to talk about the adventure path that's coming after Abomination Vaults.
Thanks, James. Yeah, we can go ahead and check out the next slide. We have a rough logo of the AP coming after Abomination Vaults, and that is called Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. It's been 10 years since we covered the once a decade fighting tournament called the Ruby Phoenix Tournament. And so since our real world calendar lines up with our in-world calendar in Pathfinder, it's time for the tournament to happen again. And this time we're gonna, instead of doing a module, the last time we covered this was a 32-page module written by Tim Hitchcock 10 years ago. And now we're giving it 3 volumes of Adventure Path, follow on the heels of Abomination Vaults. As Ron mentioned, we're trying this kind of, we're experimenting with this 3-volume arc. And so rather than start you at first level, though, because this is the fighting tournament in Galarian, you know, this is the one you go to if you're the strongest of the strong. This one starts you off at 11th level, which means that you can quite easily transition from Abomination Vaults, which takes you from 1st to 10th level. You can right on the heels of that, you can jump into this Ruby Phoenix tournament if you want to put your Dungeon Delver to the test. And I'm really excited for this this adventure path. It gives us a lot more room to describe the tournament and kind of get into the most interesting details about it. The first volume is called Despair on Danger Island, and that is written by our developer Luis Loza, and that is going to take you to the preliminary qualifying event, basically, that comes before the actual tournament itself, and that is a kind of battle royale style. 32 teams or 16 teams or however many are on this island, this tropical deserted island in the middle of the ocean, and you all have to basically duke it out and get these tokens. And if you get 10 tokens, then you're in the tournament. But there's only 80 tokens, so you got to make sure you're one of the final 8, basically. So really excited to draw some inspiration from you know, some sandbox games and stuff like that. You're dropped off on this island, and you it's totally freeform, basically, how you choose to handle it and who you want to encounter and the relationships you build with your fellow competitors. So that leads into the second volume, which is called Ready Fight, and that's written by David and Ross, and that is the tournament itself, right? So that takes up you know, that's the middle portion of the adventure path, and that is the Ruby Phoenix tournament. This is the first tournament, Ruby Phoenix tournament, since the eponymous Ruby Phoenix, who is a sorcerer named Hao Jin. It's the first time this tournament's been run since she returned back to the material plane from her 300-year sojourn to other planes throughout the multiverse, like Axis and all that stuff. The you know, material plane was just too boring for this super powerful sorcerer, so she was basically, while she was gone, they were giving away her treasures, her massive, you know, from her massive treasure vault. That's the prize for winning this tournament, is you get 1 treasure from her vault. Now that Hao Jin's back, she has a bit, you know, more of a hand in the tournament itself. So you get to know her, get to meet this super powerful sorcerer, and of course, when a super powerful sorcerer is involved, she has plenty of super powerful enemies who are more than happy to disrupt her tournament. So so during the second volume, in the middle of the tournament, you know, you get to do these cool bracket tournaments and basically face off against each of the other teams. But before you know, not everything goes to plan, and a massive kaiju summoned or at least enlisted by the AP's villain gets involved, and so you kind of have to put the tournament aside for a second while you save the city from complete and total destruction. I should mention that actually also that this the tournament itself takes place in Goka, which is our gateway to the west city. It's in Tian Sha, and it's kind of a Hong Kong analog. It's this very cool cosmopolitan city where the tournament is held every year, or every 10 years, sorry. So once you take care of all the mayhem that's happening, you know, around the tournament, then you kind of have to find out, where did Hao Jin go? She kind of disappeared amid all this chaos, and since she's the Grand Master Judge, she's the Grand Judge of the whole thing. You kind of need her there so you can officially win the tournament. So you have to go hunt her down, and that leads into the third volume of the Adventure Path, which is called King of the Mountain. That's written by James Case, one of our developers on the Pathfinder Society line, and that is a really cool one because it takes you across the Wall of Heaven Mountains, which is the mountain range around Goka, and that's kind of a very you know, snowy, super high mountains. Wall of Heaven, you know, the name suggests, is pretty tall. So you're going up there, and there are plenty of other competitors who also want to find Hao Jin because you know, whoever finds her first probably looks pretty good in her eyes, and that might influence the final winner of the tournament. So you're trying to solve this mystery, and I won't give away too much. It's kind of a there's kind of a twist basically. So you'll just have to kind of wait and check that out when it comes out. But I'm really excited for this fighting tournament AP. We're going to draw a lot of inspiration from games like Tekken or Street Fighter and stuff like that. These video games that were near and dear to my heart as a younger man, when I would go to younger boy, really go to the round table pizza in town and play the arcade machines and stuff like that. So what's a fighting tournament without some 2D fighting arenas to fight on and stuff. So we're going to play with the battlefields a lot in this AP and kind of really try out some new stuff that I'm really excited to play with in the second edition of Pathfinder. It's going to be a really fun time, I think. That kind of takes us to our Q&A segment. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, but look forward to that after Abomination Vaults. But yeah, now we're going to enter the Q&A portion, and basically anyone who has a question, feel free to pop it into the Twitch chat, and we'll get to them as we see them. We'll kind of roundtable it.
I actually saw one that
yeah, go for it.
While people are getting their questions in about Kingmaker. Someone was asking, is it just a revamp or is there new content? I mentioned this when we were talking about Kingmaker back a little bit ago. The new adventure path is 640 pages long. So if you just do the math and you look at the 6 adventures we originally published, each one of those is around 50 pages, I would say. So maybe 55 pages, depending upon the volume. So there is overall, including the expansion to the kingdom building material and the mass combat, narrative mass combat stuff, we've more or less doubled the size of Kingmaker. It's really a full-on adventure path, sandbox style thing. We've got, my guess would be probably enough new material that if we'd published it separately, it would have been maybe a 200-page book, 150-page book. So there's a lot of new content. If you do every single encounter in this Kingmaker hardcover, you're going to hit 20th level well before you get to the last adventures, because there's just so much stuff in here. It's a true sandbox. You can skip entire adventures and still be ahead of schedule because you decided to turn left instead of right. So a lot of the new content's taken from the Owlcat game and kind of translated back to the tabletop experience. There's a lot of just brand new content no one outside of Paizo or Legendary has seen before. So it should be pretty exciting.
Awesome. I see a couple of questions about Ruby Phoenix tournament. Zerg Titan 99 asks, what is the Ruby Phoenix bloodline? Will it be made available in the 3rd volume? And it wouldn't be very much of an AP about the Ruby Phoenix if you didn't get the Ruby Phoenix bloodline for sorcerers, of course. So I think you can fully expect us to make good on that implicit promise. And then another user, it's up there, but someone asked if you're not really interested in the fighting tournament plot line, is there other stuff in this adventure path for you? And I would say definitely, because if gold and glory aren't your thing, then there's danger and heroics to be had as well. The city is put into danger, and there's something afoot. So if you're just looking for an adventure where you can be the heroes and save the day, then that'll cover, it'll scratch that itch as well.
Saw another question pop on from Shanwolf01. Ask, is any content going to bring in mythic rules with a innocent face involved in that? So mythic rules in first edition Pathfinder was our solution for what happens when you hit 20th level, what happens beyond that. How do you, if you want to play like the son of Desna, or you want to play somebody who is like half ascended to divinity, or is just beyond what the rules do, essentially you want to play a superhero. That's the point of mythic rules. And we went the route with mythic rules because we wanted that flavor to be something you could play at first level. You didn't have to play an entire campaign to get to. With second edition Pathfinder, a lot of the underlying math has been refined and made more supportive for whatever level. So you don't have this sort of degrading math numbers that start kicking in at higher levels, which make the difference between like the wizard's fortitude save and the fighter's fortitude save is so much that the fighter would always survive and the wizard would always fail. As a result, those specific needs that we needed Mythic to meet in first edition aren't necessarily in second edition. At this point, though, We don't have any plans to do anything, for Mythic or something different that maybe goes beyond 20th level or anything like that. We have a brand new edition of the game. We just this Gen Con with the release of Advanced Player's Guide finally have what we call the core experience of Pathfinder out. So now going forward, we're going to start doing some new stuff, some more interesting, new ways to play the game and explore the game. So we're going to be focusing in on those types of elements going forward. Something like bringing in kaiju into an adventure path. In first edition, they were, CR 28, 29, 30. They were things that you couldn't fight if you were, a low level character. And by low level, I mean even including 20th level. And, but I mean, you look at any kaiju movie, and the whole point of the kaiju movie isn't the humans getting fistfights with Godzilla or Gamera. That's not what a kaiju does. So there are other ways to have kaiju in an adventure that you don't just run up and roll initiative on them. And if you do, you're going to get stepped on. So, yeah, there's no plans at this point to do Mythic stuff for second edition. Let's see, what else? You guys see any questions in there?
Crazy Stitch 519 asked, can we expect to see any evil APs at some point soon? And I'll take this time to reiterate something I think I said during our PaizoCon panel, which is that it's a lot easier to slot a traditional, I guess I might say, AP for a group that wants to play evil characters. It's a lot easier to take one of our APs that we kind of expect you to play a good or at least neutral character most of the time. It's a lot easier to turn one of those into an evil AP than it is to turn an evil AP into an AP for good or neutral characters. So that's kind of why we don't touch the evil AP format very often, just to give it a little bit more context.
Yeah, I've got in the back of my head, I kind of have been wanting to do a player characters are all Red Mantis Assassins adventure path that I've wanted to do for like 7 or 8 years now. And I mean, that would be an example in my head where we could do an evil adventure path that has enough, I guess, storyline constraints on the player characters that you could pull that off, and still, if people didn't want to play evil characters, could still find a way to do it elsewhere or in another way. Tricky thing with evil adventure paths or any adventure path that goes too deep into one specific category is that you limit how many people want to play it, and that closes off that entire line for 6 months or 3 months if we continue doing 3-part ones. So it's really, we tend to try to make our adventure paths as adjustable as possible for entire groups. So if you want us to see, if you want us to do an evil adventure path or something like that, let us know. That's letting us know what adventure paths you want to see is a big influence on what we do. Somebody else asked if there was a adventure path after Ruby Phoenix has been announced. We did not announce that here. We're not going to announce it at Gen Con. Traditionally we would, but since we're doing 2 adventure paths, 3-part ones, we didn't want to, steamroll over Ruby Phoenix and with too many announcements. We will be announcing more content later in the year.
Absolutely.
Again, can we announce, is there an adventure path after Fists of the Ruby Phoenix, or are we just done and washing our hands of adventure path? No.
there is an adventure path after Fists of the Ruby Phoenix. Never fear.
Never fear. That's right.
I do. Let me jump in. I do want to point out for the evil question, Abomination Vaults is actually a great adventure path if your players want to be evil, because there's enough going on there that if every time somebody says, hey, can you give me some help, your player's like, well, we stab them with our swords and then we take their stuff and then we go gleefully on through the rest of the dungeon. It's not an adventure path where they will be falling too far behind, because there's so much stuff going on. They can still have the full 1st or 10th level adventure path experience, even if they are the biggest jerks to ever swing through Otari.
Blue Cruise has a question I'd want to jump in on real quick. Asks, will some iconics show up in Ruby Phoenix as sample winners of the previous Ruby Phoenix tournament that can be replaced by PCs at levels? I'll let Patrick address that in a moment. But one thing to keep in mind is, although our iconic characters do have stories and personalities, they are meant to be surrogates for your player characters. And so they actually, aside from being in, when we put them in illustrations, we're just using them in illustrations because we don't know what your player characters look like. So we have to do something. We throw in our iconics to do that. They don't actually have storylines in the adventure paths themselves. in a very few exceptions come to mind. In Return of the Rune Lords, part of the plot of that was the previous group of player characters have fallen into trouble and they make cameos in the adventure. That one is set up so that your GM and your party has to decide who those characters are, and we kind of dance around it. But we use like Sione and Mauricio and Kira and a couple other of our iconics, again, just as stand-ins. They're like just stunt doubles for your player characters. Another one is in Kingmaker. We've got the companion guy, which has a bunch of information about other NPCs that can join you. Since these were all taken from Alcat's game, and Alcat includes a Miri, that is the first time we've got Amiri having an actual story, an iconic having an actual storyline that interacts with us with the rest of the adventure path. But it's a weird sort of situation. It'd be like if you were running your home game and like I busted into your house and said, you've got to run one of my characters in there as a player character. It's weirdly invasive to have an iconic player role in an adventure path, in my opinion. So Patrick, how are those like previous winners being handled?
Yeah, that's a good question. It does take place canonically 10 years after the previous one, which if you're familiar with the module, and to a certain extent, we did a whole Pathfinder Society, plot line for a year that kind of went into Tian Sha and stuff like that. So the in the module, the Pathfinder Society gets involved kind of against a group of criminals who are trying to fix the tournament's outcome, who are called the Golden League. And you can be sure that there's sore feelings among the Golden League, and there's definitely people who have made their fortunes, from the tournament in the past, who will be making repeat appearances. Yeah, so there's definitely some Easter eggs and some treats in there for folks who are familiar with the previous Ruby Phoenix tournament. Kari Nokami asked if it's easy to scale the Ruby Phoenix tournament, if you want to play it at a different level, if you want to run the tournament at 15th or 20th level. Just to clarify, the first adventure in that 3-part AP starts you off at 11th level, and that takes you all the way up to 14th level, I believe. And then the second volume takes you all the way to 18th level. So when you're actually doing the tournament, you're going to be 14th, 15th, 16th level, and it should be, the scaling in Pathfinder 2nd Edition is very easy. So it should be, I think, very simple to scale it. If you want to start a little bit earlier, start the tournament, or start a little bit later, I think that'll be a really simple thing to do.
One of the things that made Ruby Phoenix starting at 11th level, so, I mean, let me back up a little bit. The Ruby Phoenix tournament is the fight where the most powerful characters in the world come together and, ready fight. The original adventure that we published first level for first edition, it was for like the 14th level characters, the 13th level characters, if I remember correctly. So starting the Ruby Phoenix tournament adventure path at first level, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because you'd have to spend over half the adventure path not doing anything with the Ruby Phoenix tournament, because you're not world-class heroes at that point. You're not, legendary fighters. You're just, farmers who picked up a sword, or, a blacksmith who had to go fight against goblins, or what, the first little story is a different plot than what we wanted to do with Ruby Phoenix. So it's a case where doing a 3-part adventure path lets us do a story we normally wouldn't be able to do.
I was going to say Kai Sepik asks if there's going to be a map of Tian Sha anywhere in the Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, and that was asked a little bit farther up too. There'll definitely be some contextualization, and I'm not going to promise anything, but there is, the first edition map of Tian Sha, if you're curious about that. But we'll probably print another or put it in a blog or something, at least, so you know where in the world you are in the context of the adventure path, of course. But we'll definitely be getting more in-depth maps of areas like the island where the first preliminary round is set, and then also we'll be getting a very cool map of Goka, which is a whole daunting aspect if you've ever mapped a metropolis, 300,000 or 400,000 people in it. So there'll definitely be some pretty awesome maps. I think what we're mainly focusing on with this adventure path, though, Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, is as really cool battle maps and making those, because that's kind of the whole focal point of the AP, is these fights. and we'll be using, you know, kind of different rules subsystems. Like from the Game Mastery Guide, there's a duels subsystem, which is perfect for one-on-one rounds. And there's, you know, of course, exhibition matches. So, you know, all of the battle maps are going to take front and center stage in this adventure path for sure.
There was another question back there. Somebody was asking about oh, it fell off my screen. Oh no. Somebody did mention something about humble bundles, and that we should continue doing humble bundles. Obviously, we're going to keep doing them, and in fact, we've got a humble bundle going on right now. It's a pretty amazing one. It's got if you throw in, I think it's $30, you can actually have a physical copy of the second edition rulebook and ship to your house. And as with all humble bundles, you know, you can adjust the sliders. This is going to a lot of really great charities. I don't remember it's like the NAACP and
NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the Carl Brandon Society. Yeah, I got 2 out of 3, but they're you know, very, very much in support of some great causes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can find that by just Googling Pathfinder humble bundle. Yeah,
and it's if it's something that you've been interested in, kind of in the back of your mind, like, oh, that might be kind of something I want to move on. There are only a couple days left, so now is the time to be moving on that.
DC Caldemir asks, if the 3-part adventure path is received well, what regions and their potential story elements does the shorter one open up on Galarian? It doesn't really. It's not so much that it opens up new regions. It gives us 3 chances to tell stories rather than 2. So it allows us to do that. We're going to wait and see how people react to 3-part adventure paths once it's out. So we won't really know for sure till this time next year. We'll have our first guesses as to how it's going over. I see people chanting next, Geb. On our boards, people keep yelling Galt. Setting adventure paths in regions we haven't yet explored is kind of the whole point of an adventure path. I mean, with a few exceptions, if you look at all our adventure paths, even the ones set in Berisia in the first 3 years of Pathfinder, they're all set in different parts of Berisia. We've almost never do adventure paths that go back and retread area we've already covered unless we're specifically doing a sequel adventure path. So each adventure path we do that is not set in next makes it more likely that the next adventure path we do will be set in next, if that makes any sense. So yeah, just keep tuned, keep watch, and we have stuff planned for next. And where or when we get to it, it's sooner than it used to be. I'll say.
Yep. Well, we're about at time here, so want to thank you all for watching. This has been great. I'm glad you're as excited for the future of the Pathfinder Adventure Paths as we are.
Yay! Thanks, Patrick, for running the show here.
My pleasure.
And you and I get to like run off and hide now, right?
That's right. Up next, Ron will be talking, and
I got to talk a lot more about the Adventure Path, or about Abomination Vaults in particular. I'm very excited.
Yay! Abomination Vaults.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, everybody.
Cool. Thanks a lot.